welcome you back. For those of you whom I've yet to meet and who weren't with us yesterday, my name is Frederick Murphy and I'm your Master of Ceremonies for the Technology Stage. Now it's my immense pleasure to kick off this afternoon with a very special panel. The thing with panel is so amazing because you get to hear from people that usually may not be in the same room together. And it's a staff conversation where you just wish you could hear and listen. And that's exactly what you're going to get today. Our panel is going to be led by our very own Chainges content manager, Max. And he's joined today by 3 experts, 3 key players in 3 different blockchain platforms. So, from your left to your right, we have Iker.
Right, yeah.
And Iker is the head of the science team at Lisk. We then have Ilya Smagin. And Ilya is the smart contract lead developer.
Waves. My papa will go echt intensive waves. Dat is voor de papa beginnen ook vliegen naar contracts en channel.
Waves. And Kristof Van de Reck, Interim President at the NEM Foundation. Those of you who were with me yesterday, welcome back to Kristof. So, without further ado, we'll get this. I know Max has great questions, and if you have some questions, just, keep them in mind, and then I'll come with you with the mic later on. Enjoy!
Hello everyone, welcome. I'm very pleased to see you all right here. I see many familiar faces actually. My name is Max, and as Frederick said, we have 3 amazing guests today. When we think about blockchain platforms, we basically think mainly about NEM, Waves, and Lisk. So I think, guys, this is a really good company to talk about dApps and tokenization. So I think that it will be the best thing to do. The best thing to do would be actually to give the voice to our speakers to let them introduce themselves.
Hello everyone. So yeah, as you just heard, I am Iker. I have a PhD in coding theory, telecommunications, and I got involved with blockchain technologies like 4.5 years ago. It was just a hobby back in the days, but now, as you can see, since December last year, is something like professional, as I am the head of the science team for Lisk.
Alright, hello everyone, my name is Ilya Smagin. I've always been passionate software developer, and I've joined Waves like a year and a half ago. It was a relatively small company by that time, like 5-6 people. Now we're around 70. We're doing cool stuff, and we're moving forward with our technology and features, and it will be great to discuss what others are doing here today.
Hello everyone, my name is Kristof Van de Reck. I'm Interim President for the NEM Foundation. I got into blockchain somewhere late 2013, interested in Bitcoin actually. Nobody was talking about blockchain yet. And so as soon as I learned the technology behind Bitcoin, and as soon as I realized the potential of blockchain, actually I never really looked back. It took me until last year, I think May or something, to actually start working full-time on NEM. And until recently I have worked on expanding NEM Europe, the operations for Europe, and a little bit broader also. Did some stuff in Russia and some other countries too outside of Europe. And now earlier last month I became the interim president until we have our next elections, which should be in the next couple of months. And then we'll see whether I get elected as the permanent president. But I'm excited to be here and talk with these other 2 very interesting panel members about our technologies.
Okay, so as I said earlier, decentralized applications. Right now, let's say in 2018, it's still very hard to see what the future will bring for this area. But actually, I want to ask you what each of you as a company and we as a blockchain industry altogether can do to consolidate blockchain decentralized applications use in mainstream?
Okay, so yeah, I will start. I would say, yeah, as you said, dApps as a decentralized application have been with us like 15 years, right? Like BitTorrent, all these peer-to-peer application, all these protocols. So the dApp concept, I think, is something, it's not new, and it's somehow already mainstream. But as you said, like, now we have this new thing called dApps for blockchain applications. That is a decentralized application somehow related to a blockchain, like running on top of it or in many other ways you can think of. So, yeah, regarding these blockchain applications, I think I would say there are like three, for me, in my personal opinion, three key points, key concepts that we, as a whole, not only my team, as the whole blockchain industry should pursue or should achieve to get this mainstream use of dApps. So, first of all, I would like to say that, yeah, these dApps are really new, like, they're like babies, but there are a lot of people behind the scenes, there are a lot of people waiting to jump into the dApps or the blockchain industry, and yeah, maybe we don't know why, but they are not doing it yet. They are just waiting or not aware of the whole possibility. So, the first key point I would like to say is education, like to educate all the people interested, all the people that they hear, oh, what is Bitcoin, or what this can offer to me, to my business, whatever, right? So education, like to educate these people from the basic level to say what blockchain is, what a decentralized application is, the cryptography behind it, and so on. And as a matter of fact, here in our project in Lisk, we have this. We recently launched this Lisk Academy. That is, basically in our webpage, you can access the academy, and it's like lessons. So you can start from the beginning, from the basics of blockchain, until you get all these blockchain concepts as testing yourself, and you gain this at least the fundamental idea of blockchain. So that's for the education part. Then there are two other concepts that they go, I think, hand by hand. That are accessibility and usability of the dApps themselves. So we need to make them as easy to use as possible, as easy to access as possible, and in other words, like, we have to lower the level of the entry point for blockchain as an industry, right? Like so you don't need to be like a super experienced developer to start with something with blockchain, but you can be just a simple entrepreneur that, I don't know, Java or JavaScript or whatever, and say, oh, now I have this small computer science knowledge, but I can actually jump in and add value to the whole industry, right? So that's one of these two key concepts that we have to pursue. And just to link again with Lisk, that's from the very beginning of the project of Lisk. We had this idea of lower the level of the entry point for blockchain, and in that way, for example, we are developing this SDK or Siden development kit that, for example, someone with very basic knowledge of computer science can, with several, like 4 or 5 command lines, can generate a white-level blockchain totally functional. So that's summarizing. That's the idea, right? To have first to educate the people that they are eager to know more, and then to give them the easy to read and to access this industry, and specifically dApps. So, yeah.
Right, thank you. Well, I'd like to start with another thing, answering your question actually. And the thing is that the applications already exist, and there are a lot of them, and they are not decentralized, and that's okay. And now we're thinking about moving centralized applications to decentralized manner of those. And the issue is that the problems that we're facing with this is that there are a lot of industry standards for developing applications. Like, for example, they should be tested. There are good tools for writing code, for debugging code, for deploying code. And there are techniques for updating your software. And at this point, this is not what's common among smart contract developers. You just write some very short code, you deploy it, and it lives there forever. You don't test it, or you test it manually, but you don't have any automated testing. You don't usually have a way to update your code. And the nature of data that your application is working with is also important, because in traditional big centralized applications hosted on the data servers, there are a lot of private data. There's a lot of private data there. And when we talk about, for example, public blockchains, we can only handle small amount of public data. So you see, the challenges are not only the tooling and the instruments that we use, but also the material we work with. So I think in order for us to see decentralized applications in the mainstream, we need to first identify what applications should actually get to the blockchain. We shouldn't do CryptoKitties on the blockchain. We shouldn't do Twitter on the blockchain. Because its technology is not suitable for this, and it was not built for this. So I think we should really understand what pieces of our logic, of our society mechanisms should be on the blockchain first, and I think we are advancing in this process a lot.
So what I would like to add to that is basically, I think we should think a little bit about, I think a lot of applications that are being built today are actually come from the ability to do things with blockchain, and not necessarily from solving a real problem. You know, what we see is a lot of applications actually are doing things that actually work pretty okay in a centralized world. Let's be honest, you know. So I think there are some projects that are really trying to solve real-world problems, but I think not all of them necessarily have to be completely decentralized applications. You can also have applications that have a small part that is decentralized, and that's actually still creating the value. In order to get mainstream adoption, I agree, you need user-friendliness and things like that, but you also need to solve a problem and actually put a product in the mainstream's hands that actually people don't even realize they're using blockchain. And also maybe even using the same technology as blockchain, like public key cryptography and things like that, but maybe some parts of it will be off-chain, you know, like, and it's about finding the sweet spot that actually makes things really user-friendly, scalable, and that actually solve a real-world problem. And if I look at the landscape 2 years ago, we were far away from that. If I look at the landscape today, I see there are more and more interesting projects that are actually approaching a stage where they are really solving a problem. So I think we're on our way, but it's more or less time to see some projects that actually make some results, get some results, in my opinion.
So, yeah, you mentioned the thing that decentralized applications should solve problems. I actually have a follow-up thought to the whole concept. Well, we're talking about the consolidation of dApp's status in mainstream. So do you think that whole fashion, let's say, of creating everything on blockchain, do you think this may actually hurt the process?
Yeah, I do think so. One of the things I usually do when people come to us and they say like, okay, I want to build this thing, and usually it's very ambitious ideas, and sometimes it's very interesting ideas. But one of the things I usually do is challenge these people and tell them like, why do you want to use blockchain? You know, it's like a little bit of a reverse situation where I challenge them. Why do you even want to use blockchain? And some of them actually they completely fail at explaining to me why they need blockchain. Others are really good at it. So I think the projects that are really good at explaining why blockchain is really important for them in their use case and how it actually benefits the end user and not just some investor or like speculation aspect in it. Because let's be honest, you know, a lot of applications are basically using blockchain in a very creative way to drive more speculation of their coin, where in the end that's not something that will create mainstream adoption. So that's the way I usually look at it, like start challenging people a little bit.
Would you like to add something on this matter?
Yeah, I completely agree. And maybe one thing I'd like to add is that when a lot of people are starting to use decentralized applications, tokens, for the cases where they are not actually needed, at some point this will accumulate, and this might result in bad public opinion on what we are all doing. It might become toxic, and that's the last thing we, I guess, all want here.
Yeah, and again, I completely agree with you both. I mean, I don't know if we are someone here like we are anti-blockchain now, but no, it's true. Like I think if you are the developer, you are the entrepreneur, the person that wants to add value somehow to the world in general. First, you have to like think very precisely, very accurate what you are going to do, and have a business model for it, right? So this business model itself, if you are doing it right, it's going to tell you like you don't need blockchain, or you need blockchain, or you don't need tokens, or you need tokens. So I think this is as you said before, it was like driven by this ICO mania or something in the last year, but I think with the dust is settling now, and all these projects that they were just using blockchain for the sake of being cool are going to start disappearing, and hopefully only the good ones, those projects adding value, are going to stay.
Okay, so Ilya actually mentioned tokens, so this is going to be our second topic. The problem which I personally have with tokens and tokenization is that tokens might not be always needed, not always necessary, but we know that usually when there's a company that launches decentralized application, they launch a token to get the funding, for example, or just to gain more popularity. So the main question is the tokenization actually necessary move to make dApps functional and popular? And so if there is a token, there is another question. Many people just buy it to get rich, not to use it. So will this cause any sort of liquidity issues maybe in the future, because people would like to hold the dear token and not to use it, for example, to just make their life easier?
Yeah, so I think my answer is really related to what we were saying before with blockchain in general, now apply to tokens, right? Like, I don't believe at all that tokens are necessary to reach this popular level of your dApp. I think that is actually more important than what I was saying in the first question. The dApp, the decentralized application needs to add value, needs to be easy to use, provide some new use cases, or like there are like some use cases that they're being covered by a centralized application. But with this decentralized application, we are going to make them, add value in the way that it's going to be somehow faster or cheaper or better in other ways. So that's the main point, right? Like, if your dApp is actually adding value, covering new use cases or making better other old use cases, that's the main point, to make the dApp popular. That if this is actually happening, your application is going to get popular at the end of the day because the market is going to demand it, right? But the token, there is no necessity in all this process to have a token. Of course, there are other, after like what I was saying before, doing your business model, you say, okay, I need a token for my dApp because reasons, then yeah, but first do this business model and be sure that you have the necessity of this token. And yeah, there I can see many situations. Like I can just point out, for example, Bitcoin as a dApp, right? It can be like the main dApp. So Bitcoin, of course, there is like this incentive in the network to maintain the network secure. So the miners are getting rewards for maintaining the network secure. So there's a clear use of the token. But it can be another totally different thing. For example, I'm thinking now DApp as a newspaper or a newsfeed, and the editors or the reviewers are getting rewards as a tokens, as doing their reviewing the news, making sure that these news are not fake and these kind of things, right? So if there is an actual use of the token, because in your business model it's clear that there is a use and a necessity of the token, then yeah, let's go and tokenize that. But otherwise, I will say it's not needed. It doesn't need to be those two concepts totally linked together. And regarding the liquidity, I am not an expert in that topic at all. I'm more like a cryptographer. But I don't know, I will say just in the same way, right? Like if your dApp is actually adding value, is good, is solving use cases, the market is going to demand it, and it's going to be liquidity. I would say if the dApps, they don't have liquidity, it's because maybe there is no that demand from the market, right? So I would say the market will decide and will provide this liquidity if your dApp is good enough to have it. Okay. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I generally agree with the statement that we should use the proper technology, and if tokenization is not needed for your project, you shouldn't use it. I think it's quite obvious, right? But another aspect of tokenization is that it really works nice with blockchain. For instance, if you want to do neural networks, I don't think it's a good idea to interact with the blockchain at any level or store some data at any level. But tokenization is great, so if your business benefits from tokenization, sure, of course, you should consider using blockchain if decentralization is a necessary part of yours. But tokens are different too, and we should keep this in mind because, for example, we know ERC20 standards for token, but it's only an interface. And what if you need some behavioral aspects of your token? Not only interface, like you can transfer, you can send, but what does transfer, what does send, what does other things mean? You might need tokens with more built-in behaviors, and the challenge is to define that set of behaviors that are needed for many people and still useful to majority of community.
So, my opinion is that if you actually need a token and it's a utility token, then liquidity is it doesn't matter too much, right? Because you're buying something and you're using it, you're spending it. So the liquidity will be automatically, and actually the company that's actually issuing the utility token, they can also provide some liquidity if necessary. So in all honesty, I'm not really focused on the whole investment aspect of all of this, more focused on the technology. So that's I don't have a lot to say about this.
Okay.
If you create a valuable product and it has a utility token, I don't think liquidity is going to be your main concern.
Okay, so now let's make some assumptions then maybe. The second part about tokenization. Let's say that the world moves forward, so dApps are booming right now, and they, all of them actually, or many of them, create their own tokens. So let's say we're approaching the world where tokens and decentralized applications are actually useful and they are in that mainstream. But the thing is, may that constantly growing tokenization become the problem for the market? And I mean the fragmentation of the market. Right now, we can see that, for example, in many places when we trade, for example, tokens or cryptocurrencies. We're doing this with regards to fiat, for example, or Bitcoin. If we will have more of them, and if we will actually use these tokens, will it be harmful for the market if you have, let's say, too many tokens, too many blockchains?
Don't we already have too many tokens? I don't know how many tokens are there, like 1,500 or 2,000 or something?
I don't know, I've just counted like only 20,
Like-
you know. I started yesterday.
Yeah. When I got into when I learned about Bitcoin in 2013 or something, recently I went back. You know you have on CoinMarketCap you have these historical snapshots. Late 2013 was around 40 cryptocurrencies or something. Today is like I don't even know what goes beyond page 2 or something. No, it's crazy. No, but let's be honest. You know what is the incentive for these projects to have a cryptocurrency? Most of them, honestly, are mainly focused on just doing a pump and dump. And there are some small projects, obviously, that are very interesting and that are really working hard and that actually want to achieve some things. But I think it's we have seen way too many projects just writing a white paper, issuing a token, and basically going into oblivion. So I'm afraid that's the reality, and I'm pretty sure that is probably 2018 is probably going to be a shifting point where we see more projects that actually. So it becomes more difficult, right, to collect money with an ICO. 2017, you wrote a white paper, you created some hype, and you collected like maybe $100 million or something. 2018 is vastly more difficult. So I think it will become increasingly more difficult too, and sooner or later they will have to come up with a proper business plan, not just a white paper and working products, and that's what's happening. So I think that's a good thing.
Well, actually, I don't think many token platforms and many tokens is a problem. For example, if you look in the current situation, so for example, a lot of companies are issuing shares and going IPOs. Does that feel like a problem? Well, if no, why should tokenization look as a problem? So I think it's okay.
And yeah, in the same way, I would say maybe more like an economic point of view, right? Like I wouldn't say like fragmentation is going to be a problem, because once again, what I was saying before, if there are many tokens, but all these tokens are adding value, they are going to be demanded. So I would say it's going to be always a point of like stabilization. Like okay, if there are more tokens than these, there are like a percentage of tokens that they are doomed and they're going to disappear. But at the end of the day, if the tokens that exist they add value, they are going to survive. Someone is going to demand them. If there are many tokens at the moment, it's possible because quite a percentage of them they are not adding this value and they are going to disappear in the short or long term. We will see. But yeah, summarizing, fragmentation I think is not a problem. If platforms, tokens, blockchains are adding value, they are going to be demanded and exist.
So to summarize this part in one sentence, we can agree that actually tokens are not a big problem, but it's better for dApps and for the future development of decentralized applications to use tokens wisely and not to always think about implementing them. Okay, so the third part, it's actually more of a personal questions to you, or maybe to just your teams. What are the challenges ahead of your teams for the next, let's say, 5 years? What are the crucial segments of your work when it comes to developing safe and friendly environment for decentralized applications or token creation?
Okay, so first I want to say that for me, 5 years in the blockchain industry is like an eternity, right? Like a lot of things can happen. I hope that you agree. So yeah, I will be brave. I mean, I don't dare to say something like our plans in 5 years, because yeah, many things can happen in between. But I can say what are the challenges now and how we are trying to solve as a whole industry and our team specifically. So yeah, in that regard, I would say like maybe one of the big challenges that they're trying to be solved at the moment is scalability, right? In the way that yeah, like how to cope with mass adoption of your project or your blockchain. We can see now Bitcoin trying different ways. I mean, Lightning Network or changing the block size in other ways. And then Ethereum, I think they are now seriously implementing this sharding concept and so on. So if now I focus on my team and the Lisk project, this scalability issue, this mass adoption issue, I think is something that we consider since the beginning, since the project was created, and we try to overcome it with the concept of sidechains or a whole of a blockchain ecosystem. So where there is a main chain, the Lisk main chain, and then all these sidechains connected somehow to the main chain, right? But still they are running independently. So you as a developer, you as the entrepreneur, you create this sidechain, and for you know, whatever application you want to run on it, but it's going to run independently from the main chain of Lisk. So in some ways, like what Ethereum was doing, or was happening right now with Ethereum, but instead of like running everything on top of the main chain of Ethereum main chain, we're going to like do this. So every sidechain will have a purpose, like a dApp or a private blockchain or a specific project. So that's the way that we are going to overcome or try to overcome this scalability issue or this mass adoption issue, in the way that yeah, the sidechains can be. I mean, you can create infinite, in principle, sidechains, and they are not going to affect the performance of the main chain. So in that way, I cannot say in the next 5 years, but I can say for the rest of this year, we are going to focus on paving the way of this sidechain implementation. So like developing and researching everything necessary for this to be a reality. And we have, like, I can tell you, like, several tasks already, ongoing tasks. For example, to change the fee system to like a fee system for unscalable networks. We're going to, of course, improve how the blocks and the transactions are broadcasted in the network to improve the performance of this. What else? We have the new address system, in the way that we want the address to be unique among the whole ecosystem. So one address for the main chain and the whole sidechain. So we need to as well, like, develop this idea, modularization, in the way that the main chain is going to be modular, like